Why don't we pay attention to the clues that nature's given us to be successful? Here we are again, Eli's dad here with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. Today, I'm going to be Mr. Obvious as I review how the universe gives us clues to be successful. Listen in while I read you my letter to Eli on this subject. Dear Eli, today I want to give you 2 words. Pay attention. Like most things in life, once you break things down into their smallest components, solutions are simple. In retrospect, what seemed illogical at first becomes logical in the solution. Now, we've already talked about the fact that both failure and success are not overnight occurrences. Both are the culmination of year by year, month by month, day by day, and minute by minute choices that we make all the time. These are also known as our habits and our rituals. Now, sometimes it's difficult to determine whether our actions are putting us on the right road or a dead end. Most of the time, however, when we seize the data, we can see positive or negative progress, but we must pay attention. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that Mother Nature rarely loses. We live in a very advanced technological world, but the ferocity of a hurricane, tornado, earthquake, tsunami, blizzard, flood, or volcanic eruption still tends to render us somewhat powerless. Mother Nature's spouse, Father Time, also always wins. Now, who among us hasn't wished that they could go back into the time machine with the knowledge, experience, and wisdom that they now possess and relive and revise some past events? Eli, at one time, not only did I have hair, dark, flowing hair, this is my memory, Eli, I was also painfully thin. The only 2 skills that I've been able to successfully maintain over the years are my hand-to-mouth coordination and running my mouth, or so it seems. But I digress. Now, nature is not just the villain. She's also a heroine. When a forest is carelessly destroyed, doesn't nature find a way to rebuild and replenish? Isn't it neat when the leaf of a plant is blocked from its source of sunlight and a branch evolves, adjusting the position so that the leaf has direct sunlight exposure? Now, we can't control nature, but we must try and pay attention to it. When we know that the hurricane is approaching, we move to safer ground. We buy batteries and supplies and prepare to hunker down for safety. When there's a tornado warning, we move to the safest room away from the windows. Extreme scenarios effectively motivate us to pay attention. What I want our focus to be now, however, is when nature is a bit more subtle. I submit to you that nature gives us clues how to be successful, but we fail to pay attention. As toddlers, we copy and learn from our parents, just as the animal kingdom does. Nature at work. Pay attention. The best thing about being human versus being an animal is our ability to think, to visualize solutions, to change our environment for the better, to reason, most importantly, to resolve, to commit, and to not be denied, to will. The greatest gift that the universe has given us is the ability to create. Pay attention. Similarly, our greatest gift can also become our biggest deterrent. Oh, we create all right. Unfortunately, we create negatively. We're especially good at creating roadblocks for ourselves, barriers, limitations. When this happens, we stop trying. Nature never stops trying. Pay attention. In his book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill states that we are divided 98% and 2%. 98% unsuccessful and 2% successful. One of my mentors, Bob Anderson, said 98% are wishers, wanters, hopers, and thinkers, procrastinators. 2% are doers. Our government has published statistics that indicate that 95% of the people born 65 years ago are either dead or dead broke. 5% are financially self-sufficient. Pay attention. Now, anyone with even a small modicum of common sense has got to reason that if you want to become part of the minority that are successful, that you should copy what they're doing. We copy our parents when we're young. In fact, this is how we survive. Where and how did we meander off track? Excuse me. Feelings, nothing more than feelings. Don't worry, I'm not going to burst into song. Embarrassment, how about that? The third factor is ability. The ironic truth is that we love to copy others. Now, have you ever listened to a group of teenagers talk to each other, or businessmen or businesswomen interfacing? The worlds of fashion, music, entertainment, sports, and politics, just to name a few, are cluttered with copycats. Now, being a sports guy, my favorite is sports announcers. As a youth, I try to pitch the ball fast and aim for the corners of the home plate. Today, I need velocity and location around the dish. When I played football as a youth, I tried, the quarterback would say, "Hey, go out and get open." Today, I need to create separation. Also, as a youth, I had some pretty good spring in my jump, and I had to stay out of the key or I'd be whistled for 3 seconds by the referees. Today, you must have good elevation and need to stay out of the paint or the zebras will blow their whistle. At least they still use whistles. Now, one of my favorite remembrances of my dad was his total lack of fashion sense. "Eli, you're ordered to stop snickering and are forbidden forthwith to make comments about glass houses." Now, my dad had a tie rack with about 30 different ties in it. One of the more prominent labels on the ties was the Garden of Eden. My sister and I had no doubt that the origin was genuine, because when fat ties were in, we had those. When thin ties were in, we had those too. Our fashion was so out that it came back in. Of course, the colors were still hideous, and Eli, one thing you can say about your grandfather is he was not a copycat, fashion-wise, per se. Now let's talk about feelings. One of my favorite signs that I've seen says, quote, "You are a unique individual, just like everybody else," unquote. Now, right or wrong, we as a society look down upon individuality in general. There's a tremendous peer pressure to speak, dress, and act the same as the people in your posse. I'm hip. There is, of course, that one famous exception that your parents always dusted off as needed. If Jack jumped off the Empire State Building, would you jump too? I always find it amusing that there's always a saying to justify the inappropriateness of my actions. Now, during my married years, both Roman numeral I and Roman numeral II, the oft-repeated phrase of the day was, "You're not going to wear that, are you?" I feel justified in using Roman numerals to differentiate my marriages, because they were kind of like Super Bowls. There were lots of commercials to pay attention to. I'm just joking, Roman numeral II. Now, feelings of conformity seem to be vitally important. One of my coworkers justified a policy at work with the following words of wisdom: "It's always been done that way." Now, I'm not opposed to tradition. I am opposed to mindless tradition. I asked my coworker if he thought that we should still have slavery, and should women have the right to vote, and should we only have landlines and the U.S. Postal Service, and I loved getting the Jackie Gleason response he gave me, which was, and I quote, "Humana, humana, humana, humana." In addition to the uncomfortable feeling of being a nonconformist, there's also the fear of embarrassment. What if I try something and it doesn't work? If you make only one attempt at a worthy objective, you're not committed. Your fear of embarrassment is stronger than your level of commitment. Successful people don't get embarrassed, they get more determined. To succeed, you must continuously fine-tune, assess, make a new plan with a new starting line, and take more action. As Zig Ziglar famously said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well. Too often, people feel embarrassed because something wasn't wildly successful on their first attempt. Eli, failure is an event, not a person. Remember, if failure is not an option, success isn't either. The fear of embarrassment often leads to this type of thinking. Nothing ventured, nothing lost. Well, when you play not to lose, you usually lose anyway. And most importantly, you never move forward if you don't try to move forward. You won't get embarrassed by not trying. What you do get is a plaid jacket that they give to the members of the Mediocrity Hall of Fame. Trust me, Eli, you won't look good in plaid. The third characteristic relevant to becoming one with nature concerns ability. In today's world of multi-distracting ourselves by unsuccessfully attempting to multitask, the prevailing attitude is, if at first you don't succeed, you probably don't have the ability. And if Rome can't be built in a day, then you probably don't have the ability for that either. So why try? Commitment, my friend. Focus, my son. Clarity, young man. Eli, singleness of purpose. Now let's talk about ability. There are two meanings to ability. A fixed ability is one that constantly needs to be proven, and a changeable ability is one that can be developed through learning. In one world, success is about proving you're smart or talented. In the other world, it's about stretching yourself to learn something new, developing yourself. Don't you tire of people that continuously give you their resumes proving that they are smart and have ability, but then they never perform? If they only knew how sanctimonious they sound. Not only that, they then start to point fingers at everybody. As a leader, you aren't a failure until you start to blame. As a leader, remember to be humble and that you are in a leadership position to serve, not to be served. Remember that the purpose of leadership is to add value. Why don't people copy the minority that is successful as nature intended? Now, we've talked about feelings of nonconformity, the fear of embarrassment, that is the fear of failure, and the difference between fixed ability and changeable ability. There's one more factor to consider in this equation. We, as a society, value natural, effortless accomplishment over achievement through effort. Here's the news. There is no such thing as effortless achievement. Guess why Steph Curry is such a good shooter, or why Tony Robbins is such a good speaker? They appear to be performing effortlessly, but they continually stretch themselves behind the scenes with new ideas, techniques, and by reviewing their imperfect performances to make themselves seem more natural. Now, back in the day when I was selling, we were always given a sales pitch. One of the reasons that the 80-20 rule is so prominent in sales is because some people are more natural salespeople than others. Baloney. If you knew the hours and hours of practice it takes to become a good salesperson, you would discover that there's no such thing as a natural salesperson. Now, I was fortunate to have some great mentors. I was fortunate that they taught me to use a tape recorder and to listen to myself selling. Watching yourself on videotape is even better. There are so many aspects to becoming a great salesperson, such as making appointments, securing prospects, getting referrals, using your hands and your eyes, smiling, putting the client at ease, posture, and on and on and on and on. You see, the devil is in the details. Of course, that's where the excellence hides as well. Studying the masters is the key to success in everything. Now, here's my major point. It's natural to find a successful person, the 2%er, and copy what they do to be an outstanding achiever. I say this because nature has offspring copy their more successful parents at birth and in childhood to survive and thrive. When you are pursuing uncharted territory, copy the formula of those that pursued uncharted territory before you. Plan, do, review, be committed, and expect temporary failure. It's part of the process. It's a law of nature. Do not let failure deter you from your committed outcome, but rather use it as an inspiration to continue. You've been refocused, redirected. Don't feel that you always must follow the crowd. A man who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back to the crowd. Do not become embarrassed when you're not perfect in your performance. Copy the 2%ers that realize success is the constant correction of a series of failures. Do not ever feel that your education is complete. Continually stretch yourself to develop new skills. Do not ever feel that your education is complete. Continually remember to drill, practice, rehearse, and review to make your movements seem natural and smooth to others. Then do it again. It's necessary to tell you some of the whys and becauses people are unable to become successful. We're human and subject not only to the frailties of our species, but also the shortcomings of the society that we live in and its influences. My goal is to inoculate you from copying mediocrity by exposing the virus so that you may recognize it when you see it. And as always, to educate, lead, and inspire. Eli, pay attention to success and copy it. Your loving dad. Now don't forget to review the description box. I've given you a wicked good quote to review. Our next session is entitled, Start in the Name of the Law. To ensure that you don't miss that, subscribe and ring the bell. Also, if you got enemies and you didn't like what I just said, share it with them. If you got friends and you did like what I said, share it with them. Our thought for today, failure is the least line of persistence. And because we never end a meeting on a philosophical note, get out there and charge. I'm Eli's dad.